Hello there. Today I felt like going into nature and talking about a book that always reminded me of trees, forests, and the changing of the seasons. It is The Woodlanders by Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy is one of those authors that I just recently started reading their books. Him, together with Elizabeth Gaskell, were authors that I had heard of a long time before but never read their books. So last year I decided to buy some of their books and see why everyone seems to like them. For Thomas Hardy, I was tempted to read his novels because I heard that he describes nature in such beautiful ways that made everyone feel as if they were there in his stories. And let me testify to that and say it's absolutely true. I was transferred as if by magic to his fictional world of Wessex, with so many beautiful sceneries, villages, and towns. I was yet again amazed by the way these authors use words to make such amazing passages about nature that we cannot see or cannot describe ourselves. So, to the story. The Woodlanders, as you can guess from the title, is about a little village named Hintock in the middle of a beautiful woodland whose people work mostly in timber and farming. George Melbury, who is a rich timber merchant, lives in this village. He has a daughter whom he loves dearly and whom he had sent for a better education to another town, and in doing so has spent quite a fortune. But his sacrifice is rewarded when Grace, his child, comes home as a refined and cultured young lady. Perhaps no one in the story admires her and thinks so highly of her as her father, and he wants the best for her in every way. Except that sometimes the matter of the heart is a wiser judge than what others think with their minds. Anyways, in this village there resides a man whose name is Giles Winterbourne. He and Grace, through some circumstances concerning their fathers, have an unspoken agreement about them getting married when the time is right. And Giles has his heart set on Grace for as long as he remembers. But when Grace comes back, she and her father see that she is too good for Giles, and that it would be a waste for Grace to marry a merry farmer who also happened to lose the little fortune he had in the beginning of the story. Here enters the other gentleman, a doctor named Edred Fitzpiers, who is handsome and charming, and who comes from a good family that ranks higher than Grace's father, and who appears to favour Grace and is enchanted by her beauty from the first encounter. Mr. Mulberry sees this man as the better husband for his daughter, and does whatever he can to make Grace marry him instead of Giles. Though we know that Fitzpier does not have as much as an honest heart as Giles. And so the story is about the decision that Grace makes in choosing her husband and the regrets and the self-understanding of the characters after they make their decisions. The setting of the story, as I said, is very beautifully made. If you read the book for the scenery alone would be worth it. The forest and the paths that they take in coming and going to their homes and places of work were so dreamy and magical, and the way the inhabitants were attached to their homeland and were aware of the little changes in the weather and the trees was so satisfying to read about. There is an obvious resemblance between the Woodlanders and Far From the Madding Crowd, especially in the characters of Giles and that of Farmer Oak, and sometimes Grace and that of Bathsheba. The events that take place in this book are also similar to a degree to those that happen in Far From the Madding Crowd, that even when I was reading The Woodlanders, I kind of knew where the story would take me, yet I was hoping it would be different. And it was different at the end, but not in the way I imagined it. Though, in my opinion, it was a genius way of ending the story. The author showed some good writing skills in writing the end. Out of all the characters in this book, I especially like the character of Giles, just like I did with Farmer Oak from Far From the Madding Crowd, because he was an honest, loving, and kind man who loved Grace from his heart and wished her every happiness. And there was a scene where Grace's family was to dine at his house, which was so heartwarming to read about, which also reminded me of a scene in Far From the Madding Crowd, where Farmer Oak was in his cabin reading a book and Bathsheba was hoping to talk to him, but I think, if I remember correctly, she didn't disturb him. But it was such a heartwarming and beautiful scene. I love these kind of books that are so relaxing and happen in remote countrysides, and the events of the story impact a small group of people whom we have come to know and like. There are many who say that this book is the best of Hardy's novels, and many of his contemporaries praised it as being the finest and loveliest of his works. There are those who go deeper and think of the themes and the characters and analyze their actions and analyze why the writer wrote this and that. But I love this book for its simplicity, even if it's not simple to others. Hardy himself loved it and referred to it years later after its publication as the Woodland story, thinking about it as an entertaining story, not a complicated and vivid drama that some claim it to be. So, if you are like me and love nature and read books and stories about nature, especially in the Victorian era, I think you will find this book quite charming and you will love it. And perhaps you will pick more books by the same author, just like what I did. And so that was it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it, and till we meet again.